Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dogworks. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company, this is the Dog Driver Show. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert Forto and Parto.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert Forto and I'm here with my co-host KP, and we are the Dog Driver Show, and it is finally snowing here in Alaska. How's it going?
I'm doing much better now that we got a few inches of snow on the ground. We were shut down with our teams now, no training for actually a lot of days. Unfortunately, we had a lot of rain instead of snow, and last couple of days we got a few inches to put the dogs back on the track and get some training going and get them ready for the season.
Looking forward to it for sure. We're in the same boat up in Willow. I'm happy that we'll be out on sleds pretty soon. Today we have another Streeper. We had 3 interviews with the Streeper clan over the last month or so, and if you haven't had a chance to check those out, please do so at dogworksradio.com. Today we're talking to Eddie Streeper. He's calling in from Minnesota. He is also a Canadian. He's ran in many races over many decades, and I'm happy to have him on.
Yeah, Eddie is huge champion. Eddie, everybody in the sprint world actually knows Eddie. He has won many ONAC and Canadian championships and many other races. He has his own line of dogs that he has generated. They're very typey, racy, very fast dogs. I'm familiar with them. And we are fortunate enough today to listen to him, his experience, his background, and to know him a little bit better. How are you doing, Eddie?
Not too bad, and thank you guys for having the call. Tell the mushers, of course, they majority of them, they know you. However, a lot of our listeners, they are not sled dog drivers, and are just dog passionate people. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and what you're about. Okay, well, my name's Ed Streeper. I'm a Canadian citizen living legally here in Minnesota for the last 30 years, married to my beautiful wife, Amy. And I grew up in Fort Nelson, BC, which is the home of my brother Terry and my nephew Buddy, who still race out of Fort Nelson. And so I've just been involved with dogs ever since I was 14 years old. And we started racing at first with just a Siberian team. And then we got beat by an Alaskan, came down to British Columbia in the Yukon circuit and dominated us. And we realized if we're going to stay in the game, we better go to Alaska and get some of those things that he's driving, or like those. And then we just started breeding our own dogs and trying to improve on what we had, and started going to more and more races. And now here we are today, and time flies by when you're having fun.
Eddie, you've raced all around North America, and I believe at one point, you've raced around 200 races in different locations. Tell us about how the circuit used to be in the 80s and 90s and 2000s.
Well, actually, I've raced in just over 100 places, which is more than anybody else for sure in the history of the sport. But I for sure think I saw it when it was absolutely at its best. When we started to come to Minnesota, there was a great circuit down here and actually very good prize money. And there was a Tuffy's Triple Trail, which is Bemidji, Ely, and Grand Rapids. There was $20,000 on each one of them. And Tuffy's threw in another $10,000, so it was $90,000 between those 3 races. And we raced all over. We went out east and raced in Vermont. We raced in Lake Placid, New York, Saranac Lake. Elpo Dog Food used to, many years ago, put on a great $50,000 race out on the East Coast. We raced Laconia, and so there used to be a lot more races to pick from, for sure. And so I encourage all the mushers that are listening to work together and try to get a race going in your community and get some more races on the calendar, because we need some more races for all the races we've lost.
Yeah, you've raced for decades as on top level, not just as a participant, as a top contender. How do you maintain this level of intensity over years running sled dogs?
Well, I think, I always was kind of competitive. Our whole family sort of was. And so if we decide if we're going to play something, we're going to try to do it at our best. And so I like the animals. I was born on a hobby farm, and I actually grew up around horses a lot when I was younger and went to jockey school. And I got into the dogs, and we thought, well, it looks like it could be a lot of fun. Well, I didn't know back then, of course, that a guy could actually attempt to make a bit of a living at it. And I couldn't have done all the racing without all the sponsors and help I got along the way, for sure, because we got a lot of help and a lot of sponsors over the 40 years that I raced, and I couldn't have left the yard without the help. And I encourage anybody that is listening that can help a sled dog team through some sort of support, sponsorship-wise, please do so, because it's really getting tough to be able to travel down the road with a team of dogs. It's just so expensive and hard to make a go of it.
Trying to be competitive, I guess, was it the reason you decided to create your own lines and create your own dogs?
Yeah, for sure. We started with those Alaskans after the Siberians, and we crossed them in with a couple Saunderson dogs. And then because I was in the horse business, and I just liked the looks of a thoroughbred horse, and I kind of compared that to a greyhound. And in 79, I bred in the greyhound for the first time. And we took those pups and then got them to the half greyhounds. We got them up to about 8 or 10 miles, which was good. And then we took their pups and continued to breed in until we could get the ones that we could get them up to the 25-mile distance at a rapid speed. And I'm 18 generations down our own bloodlines that we can account for, which is a long ways. And so, yeah, we just kept trying to breed for better. We didn't breed to stay the same. I always tried to do better when I've crossed two dogs together. My goal was to be better than both the parents. Of course, it didn't always turn out that way, but I tried to breed to improve our bloodline for sure.
Yeah, for our listeners who are not familiar with Eddie's dogs, they are extremely typey, racy looking animals, and extremely fast. Obviously, you can see some percentage of greyhound and sighthounds in them. Very slick looking, shorter hair, and again, extremely fast. He has actually a little nickname. He had actually a lot of people, they still call him. They call him Fast Eddie. He is very, very fast on the circuit and a confident driver. I remember seeing him actually at a race. Do you still have that suit that it says "See ya" on the back?
Yeah, I do, but I'm too fat. I don't wear it anymore.
I remember seeing him. I'm like, man, for being confident, he is confident. Yes, "See ya" on the back as he passes the teams. I don't know if you know what we are doing, a little bit of same style of breeding, I guess, but this time with Desert Salukis to get a little bit of speed in the dogs. How did you manage the coat for the dogs that you have, being such slick coat animals and racing the circuit in Yukon or in Alaska or way up north in Canada?
I could hardly hear you there, Caruso. Did you ask about the dog's coat?
Yes. How did you manage that? Yes.
Yeah, well, of course, when you cross in the hounds into the husky and the pointer lines, you kind of push out the longer hair and you go with the shorter coated stuff. And we never ever had too many problems. I rarely had to ever race with jackets on the dogs because being sprint dogs are only out of the box for, the longest runs we would do would be hour and a half at the North American on the 30-mile heat or up to 2 hours. And so we never really had too much problem with their coats, in fact. And they sleep in the nice warm dog box doubled up at night. So I never had too much worry about the coat and never had never had too many problems with them. Of course, on the super cold days, then we put a jacket on them when they're standing around the truck. But you feed them good and you feed them right, and they can handle all kinds of conditions.
As you mentioned earlier, Eddie, you traveled all over the North America, Canada, and Alaska. How was the circuit? How did you organize running the circuit? For a lot of us, we are used to go to our local races, and if it's a big deal, we go like to 500 miles or 400 miles away. How did you do being away from home, weekend after weekend, race after race?
Well, we realized way back in the beginning that the best way for us to be successful on the circuit, on a long circuit, was to take our own food with us and to make sure not to run out of the main ingredients of our diets along the way. And so we'd always pull a trailer, and sometimes big trailers loaded heavy, and we would carry for sure our own dog food, everything, so we were never running around at the last minute or in a new town or new state or new country looking for dog food. So that was a big thing. So we just always made sure we had that was the most important. And then as far as where we were going to go, we decided to chase the main races. And so way back then, we'd have Fort Nelson's race in December. Then we could go on the circuit. We'd come down to the Midwest for 3 or 4 races, maybe shoot out to the East Coast for a race, and then turn around and head for Alaska. And sometimes when we were done in Alaska, then we'd then go to the Northwest Territories to catch Yellowknife and Fort Resolution and some of those. So we I just used to like to push a long circuit, and sometimes we were gone 3 to 4 months at a time from the time we left our driveway till the time we got back.
So did you chase basically the main big events and the biggest purses as a professional dog driver?
Yeah, for sure we did back then. And then if there was a few races on at the same time that were offering the same prize money, well, then we would see and do the figuring on where we would be the next weekend and just try to plan our circuit accordingly. And it helps if you're doing well in races. You can drive a long way when you're winning, but those miles get kind of tiring when you're getting beat.
Oh, absolutely. You seeing so many races, in your opinion, what was the biggest purse ever won by an open driver?
Well, I'm not sure, but I think possibly when I won the Fur Rendezvous for the first time in '85, it was the 50th running, and I got $15,500 U.S. funds that year. And with the Canadian exchange rate, it converted over. We got $6,000 extra dollars, so it pushed it up over $21,000 Canadian to win that race in '85. And I don't know if there's a sprint race since then that's paid $15,500 to win.
I don't think so, honestly, because Rendezvous has the biggest purse right now, and I believe it's around $10,000 right now. That is impressive. It's how people they're used to.
The second year I won Rondi, in '86 it canceled. I won it in '85. In '86 we were sitting in Toke Junction waiting for the race. They canceled it due to no snow, and I won the race again in '87 and took a $5,500 pay cut to win. It dropped from $15,500 to $10,000 to win.
That's interesting. That's so interesting. Eddie, tell me a little bit about the kennel today. As you mentioned, you don't race any longer. So what do you do with your kennel?
Well, we currently have about 100 dogs. I still raise, train, and sell some nice-looking Satisfaction Guaranteed Sprint dogs. But about 5 years ago, right before I was done with the racing, I started giving rides to the public. And so now I'm doing that on a much larger scale. And I also lease out many dogs to other ride-giving operations out in Montana and Leadville, Colorado. And so I really enjoy introducing the sport to people. And the only way I can stand going this slow is I've got paying customers in my sled paying me, because it took a while to get used to the 10 mile an hour.
Definitely. For the, a lot of us, we are not familiar managing such a scale kennel. How do you organize that on a daily basis? Do you have helpers? Do you do it just you and Amy? How do you organize such a big operation?
Well, normally we do sign on a full-time kennel helper person. In fact, this year is our first year. In the last 25 years, we won't be doing that. because I'll be down to just like 40 dogs, and I can do that by myself. But yeah, we've had just some fantastic helpers over the years. Some of them are now very successful sled dog racers, and so I just couldn't have done it without the help that we've got along the way, for sure. And so, well, it's my job. Amy's got her own job, and I mainly do the kennel, and so you just start in the morning and keep going till it's all done and do it again the next day. It never ends.
So earlier you learned about First Paw Coffee Company, and now I'm going to tell you about its Tail Wagger Blend. First Paw Coffee Company's Tail Wagger Blend is their first offering, and its name and label were crowdsourced from their Facebook fans. How cool is that? The Tail Wagger Blend is a private label premium blend that was developed just for them. It is a medium roast from Colombian beans with tastes of Brazil nuts, grapefruit, and oak. Be sure to go to ak.dog/free and enter to win a bunch of cool prizes. That's ak.dog/free.
So, Eddie, I want to step back and talk a little bit about those 100 races that you've done. I know that as a competitive or a professional dog driver, purse is a big part of that. But can you tell our listeners what makes a race special or unique? Is it the trail? Is it the ambiance? Is it, the competitors, or a combination of all?
Well, it's definitely a combination of all. But at the big races, the prestige races were the oldest races for me, like North American, Anchorage, Laconia, the Canadian Open, and also the remote races. We went all over the place. We flew our dogs up into the Arctic Circle and went to Fort Yukon, Venati, and Arctic Village. We went to some very remote places we can drive to in northern Saskatchewan and northern Manitoba. And so after a while, I was just looking to see if I could find a place to race that I hadn't already raced, because I'd raced in so many. And when I knew I had the record on the most places, and I honestly think that record will never be broke, because half the races I raced at don't even happen anymore. But then I started chasing these races just to get a new place on my list, so I could say that I attended that race.
So as a follow-up to that, Eddie, when you say you're traveling to some of these more remote locales, you talked about heading up to northern Canada. In the early days of you doing that, how were you perceived as the outsider coming in? The out-of-towner. And I'm thinking about guys like Doc Lombard when he came into Alaska and just sort of cleaned house. What did they think of the outsider coming into their local races?
Well, we were always welcomed. I always seem very welcome at most places, for sure. Every now and then there might be an individual that's not that happy to see you there, or maybe some competitor, but basically the communities were all very welcoming. When I raced Anchorage in '84 and got fourth and said I'm going to come back next year and win, a bunch of people laughed, of course. And then when I did come back and win, they took me a little more serious. And so it's just part of it. And I'm so blessed for all the friends and the people we've met all over the place. That's one of the highlights of the career, for sure.
Eddie is literally an icon, actually. I just went to the grand opening and the premiere of the Atla movie. And in the movie, Eddie, have you watched that movie yet?
No, we see there's actually this year there's a bunch of movies out, and so we're sure waiting for it to come to our region. And I think it's a real blessing for the sled dog world to get some more movies out about the sport, because for sure we have a worthwhile sport and some very interesting mushers, and so that's really good to see.
So in the movie, actually, there is a guy with long curly blonde hair, which is supposed to be you, actually. When they're talking about outsiders coming to Alaska and doing well. So if you watch it, there is a guy. It's not you, but it's like pretend to be you in that movie. I thought that pretty interesting. So you mentioned something a little bit earlier to me. Privately, not on in the interview. You said you may come up and bless us with your presence at the ONAC this year.
Yeah, I'm actually got kind of excited thinking about it, and I'm hoping I can put that together since it's hard for me to believe that I won it 35 years ago. I don't know where the time's going by so fast. And Amy won it 25 years ago, and so if I come up, Amy won't be able to come with, but I'm hoping I can come up for the 75th, and I think that'd be a lot of fun. And if I do, I might consider putting on a meet and greet for a bunch of my friends and fans Saturday night at the North American, and we'll put out some advertising if that's going to happen. So I really hope all the people in the villages and the places that we've raced that know me, and even if they don't, if they want to come out and say hi, I'm hoping we can make that happen. And so we'll see if that all comes together, and we should know in about 2 weeks, but I think it's going to happen. So
the last time you were in Fairbanks was when?
I don't know. That's a good question. Last time we were in Fairbanks is when? I don't know. It was the 60th of the North American.
Okay, so 15 years ago, because this year is the 75th. Definitely. Interesting.
I don't know where this time going by so fast. I just turned 60, but I'm kind of in shock. I'm going through my 5th midlife crisis because I don't like how fast I'm getting old.
So if you're coming, you're going to bring a puppy or two maybe to raffle out at the show? Why not?
Well, you bet. If I do come, for sure, I would have some free draw prizes, and I'll consider bringing a real nice, top quality 9 or 10-month-old pup if I come, and that would be the main prize for people that attend the little get-together. If I have it, would have a chance at winning something like that, along with some other real nice prizes. So I sure hope I can pull it off, and I'll know real soon if we can, and we'll look forward to getting the advertising out, and sure hope I can see a lot of people from a lot of the villages that know me, and I remember some of them, and I'd sure like to see a bunch of them.
Yeah. Do you still go to the Canadian Championship to watch, or I believe you've won. How many of them have you won?
Well, no, I won. When I won the 50th running in 2012 was my 10th time, and it's too far away for me to go up there just to watch. We enjoyed watching the coverage now with this internet, the way we can see coverage of these races, and I really think that is going to help the sport for sure if we can get more races doing the live coverage, even on Facebook or one of the sites, because there's fans all over the world that if they could see these races on a regular basis, I think it could really help the sport in a lot of ways.
Again, I mentioned that again and again in this show that a lot of our listeners, they are not specifically sled dog folks. But when I have a dog breeder like yourself online, I always ask, what are you looking in a top champion sled dog? What are you breeding for? I'm talking about their body and their head.
Yeah, well, I always wanted a straight running dog where, I want their back legs running straight up to their front feet, not passing their front feet with their back legs. I could get away with that with the shorter races, but for the 20 and 30 mile stuff at a high velocity of speed, efficiency was always my goal. I wanted a straight running team, no crooked running dogs, just driving hard and driving forward, and a little bit bigger dog if possible. But like I say, a small dog that pulls is better than a big one that's just carrying the harness and not pulling. So you got to be careful on how you pick them that way. But I just like the fluid running team, and I used to find it funny in some of the mass starts. There I'd be running very fast with my beautiful running dogs, and here would come this flopping half-pointer cross things, legs flying, ears flying, and go rolling on by me, and I'm going like, now what's wrong with this picture? But no, I enjoyed creating a fast, friendly dog that likes to run fast, that eats well, and can keep their feet together. With the hounds in there, we had to do some footwork for sure, but I see they're wearing boots on 3/4 of the Iditarod team, so I don't feel so bad about hounds having the odd bad foot.
Excellent. Eddie, we always ask our guests the same question, and I hope you will provide us with some unique insight. And that question is, for folks that are just getting involved in the sport, whether it's dryland racing or sprint mushing or Iditarod or whatever, if somebody were to ask you one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them if they can, for sure, try to tag up with the kennel or a mentor so they got somebody they can ask some questions to. If they can go help a kennel, even if it's not for a full winter, go help handle for somebody if they can. And otherwise, these days with this internet and all these sites, there's so much information because there's so many mushers on these sites that have a lot of very valid, good opinions. When I started, the George Atla book was the only book out, and man, we thought that thing was something else, which it is, because there was great information. Then Jim Welch came out with his book. Now we're talking long ago, and so I encourage anybody out there in the sled dog world to, if you can, write a book. We need some more books and some more information to get out to the beginners. But I would tell beginners, just be careful who you're dealing with, especially if you're buying a dog. Make sure you get a satisfaction guarantee. Do not buy any dogs if there's no satisfaction guarantee. You can work out a time limit on that guarantee. Just be careful on where you take your advice from, and use common sense. It's not rocket science. They're animals that need care daily, good food, dry bedding, treat them right, and they'll do you justice.
Great advice for sure. KP, anything else in closing?
No, just Eddie, if you have anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any people, anyone who's helping your kennel, yourself, your dogs to get to that level, now it's time. And hope to see you at ONAC this year. Really appreciate the time you gave us to chat with us and to share some of your experience with us.
Yeah, well, thank you guys very much. And I would like to thank Red Paw Dog Food. They've been helping fuel our team for over 10 years. I'd like to thank Klaus Oshberg with Oshberg Kennel Supplies for helping us with collars and harnesses. And I've got way too many sponsors over the 40 years to mention, but I would just like to say I couldn't have done any of it without them, because without sponsors, it's a tough road to hoe trying to be a dog musher.
Excellent, Eddie. One last point to make. Do you guys have a Facebook page or a web page or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I do. It's www.funsleddogrides.com.
For joining us today, we're talking to Eddie Streeper, and on behalf of my co-host, KP, this is Robert for the Dog Driver. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
From First Paw Media, this is the Dog Driver Show. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you can see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert Forto and Parto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media.